Real Virginia is proudly produced by the Virginia Farm Bureau Federation. Since 1926, Farm Bureau has been working to preserve Virginia farms and our rural heritage. Visit our website at vafb.com.
Home will always be Virginia, between the Blue Ridge and Chesapeake Bay, Atlantic to Appalachia, home in my heart always.
Hello everyone and welcome to Real Virginia, a show about Virginia agriculture and the people who produce all of the wonderful products we enjoy, brought to you by the Virginia Farm Bureau. Food bank officials say one of their greatest needs year-round is fresh milk. Fortunately, Virginia dairymen are stepping up to the challenge. Chef John Maxwell focuses on a favorite Virginia vegetable for his latest recipe, and one Virginia food group that you can find fresh year-round are herbs. Welcome back, everyone. We are coming to you from the Growers Exchange in Sandston, Virginia, where they produce wonderful local herbs year-round, and we're going to tell you more about this operation later on in our show. But first, we'd like to talk about food banks. The holiday rush season to donate to the local food banks has ended. However, food banks are in need of fresh foods year-round, and as you might imagine, some of those foods are very hard to come by. And that's where the Virginia dairy farmers have stepped up to help. It is a simple breakfast of eggs, bacon, and a glass of milk. But for many throughout the Commonwealth, simple basic food needs, and especially nutritious milk, are beyond their means. According to Feeding America's Map the Meal Gap report, nearly 894,000 Virginians, including almost 250,000 children, experience food insecurity. That means they struggle to afford enough food at any point throughout the year. Food banks and the pantries with which they are aligned with are a vital resource for these families. While canned food items come in regularly to food pantries and have a long shelf life, food banks across the state simply had very little fresh milk available. Some food banks had no way to store milk. That was until a statewide program called Milk for Good was developed, and, well, the donations started pouring in.
Dairy product, especially fluid milk, is one of the most requested items that we get in our pantries, but it's one of our least donated. The shelf life on milk is just really hard for food banks to move quickly, and so starting a purchasing program will allow us to extend that shelf life and get some fresh, locally processed milk to some of the families in Virginia who need it the most.
Milk for Good is an initiative with the Federation of Virginia Food Banks in partnership with the Dairy Alliance, the American Dairy Association Northeast, and the Virginia Dairymen's Association. Beginning this month, each of Virginia's 7 food banks will receive 200 half gallons per week over a 24-week period. This is the first phase of a planned rollout of possible increased milk donations and is generously supported by a $50,000 grant from Colonial Farm Credit of the Virginias, and Mid-Atlantic Farm Credit. It's a win-win because Virginia dairy farmers are also in a tough financial situation. They've been struggling to make ends meet after years of low milk prices.
We have small dairy farms that are going out of business, and that's been happening for a number of years, but the last couple years in particular it's gotten more challenging. So we have, most of our dairy farmers have about 86% of their product in fluid milk, and there's definitely a large volume out there, and we need to have more opportunities and more markets for those dairy farmers.
This program allows some of the nutritious milk that is produced by local dairy farmers to get into the hands of those who are most in need. Some food banks didn't have enough refrigerators to store large quantities of fluid milk, so the grant money is helping pay for them.
That's one of the biggest barriers to distributing more milk in our pantries, is simply having the refrigeration space. So as part of that, we were grateful to get over $50,000 in grant funding for 21 pantries across the Commonwealth to get new refrigeration units that will actually store the milk. So we're adding our capacity, we're buying more milk each week. It's going to go out to all 7 food banks and dozens of agencies that really haven't had access to milk before.
I think it was really what was really exciting about this. We know that we've had this issue with our dairy farmers, and when I became Secretary of Agriculture and Forestry, I became, much more aware of the challenges that were happening there. I have some great stories of family farms that are looking at changing their business model so they can stay in the family. We want to be able to do everything we can to keep that land in the family, and we've made that one of our top priorities.
Oliver says it's not the first time Virginia's farmers have stepped up to help provide fresh food for their community food banks, and he is sure that it won't be the last.
The first people who are ready to get out there and help when they know there's a need in the community are our farmers, and especially the dairy industry. It's been difficult for them lately, and we really feel for the dairy farmers, but they're not letting that stop them from getting out there and helping us have a successful program, getting more milk into the households that need it.
The help from dairy farmers is welcome, but Oliver says everyone can do their part to give their local food bank a boost.
The ultimate thing that we need is just financial support. Because all 7 food banks are working together, we're able to leverage our collective buying power and get a better price than you would at the grocery store, at retailer. So every $5 donation gives us about 3 servings of milk, so it goes a long way.
To find out more about hunger in Virginia and see how you too can make a difference, go to vafoodbanks.org.
Virginia's dairy industry has been contracting in recent years, but it's still an important economic sector in the state's farm economy. In 2017, Virginia dairy farmers sold about $347 million worth of milk, and the Old Dominion was the 22nd largest dairy state in the U.S. The number of dairy farms in Virginia dropped from 650 in 2017 to 550 in 2018, and it's still declining, according to the Virginia State Milk Board. Some dairy farmers are adapting to changing market conditions by bottling and processing their own milk for sale directly to consumers instead of selling to a cooperative.
I'm Mark Viette. Coming up on In the Garden, I'm going to talk about what you can do to protect your boxwoods from snow and ice. Stay with us.
Farm Bureau is the insurance provider of choice for farmers. But did you know all Virginians can benefit? In fact, most of our members are not farmers. Members may take advantage of discounts on selected autos, trucks, mowers, and tractors on top of the many insurance offerings. Your $40 membership will easily pay for itself with our many savings options as well. Farm Bureau is made for Virginians. To learn more about the membership advantage, go to vafb.com or visit your local Farm Bureau.
We've already had some snowstorms this year in Virginia, and today Mark Viette shares his tips on how to protect fragile plants in the garden.
Many of us have a variety of different boxwoods in our garden. They've been popular for 150 years. Easy to grow. You can get boxwoods that stay small, and certain types of boxwoods will get 20, 25 feet. One of the things that some of us do worry about is ice or snow damage. And as you look at some of these boxwoods here, you can see the snow sort of bending down the branches. Really not going to hurt these, but some cases, they could be bent all the way to the ground or flattened. One of the things I did notice is that I see a little more of the bending over the boxwoods that are grown in too much shade. Granted, they'll take shade, but they don't have all the strength that boxwood that might be planted in full sun have. Always be safe, be careful. You really don't want to go out in the garden if there's ice in the garden, but you can take something like, if some of you have a walking stick, you just go out in the garden, and sometimes people do this mid-snow if you're going to get, anywhere from 12 plus inches, but you can just go and shake these boxwoods just like that. Some people even use their hands. It's just that easy. But again, you need to be very careful if you're doing it and if there's ice and so forth. But that will allow the boxwoods from not bending over. It's pretty easy to tie up your boxwood. Just come in here and find a nice point. take your string. Sometimes it works really great with 2 people, but you can just walk around. And you just kind of, you know, cinch it up like a Christmas tree. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll come in this way. And I'll go backwards. And I would only do this for your prized or favorite boxwoods, ones you really don't want to come out and see flattened from, you know, maybe snow sliding off your roof. And that's it. Cinch it off. You're done. Some people use burlap, but string allows for a lot of aeration and light to get to your boxwood through the winter months. The other thing that you can do with your boxwood is properly prune them. This boxwood is not sheared. This boxwood, or at least it's not sheared with the hedge trimmers. It is sheared with the hand trimmers, just reaching in and pulling out sections. We use that to make, you know, kissing balls or arrangements with boxwoods. But what you want to see when you open up your boxwood is nice new growth right in the center of the plant. It's really hard to pull this down since there's a lot of light that goes through. So keep in mind, don't use your hedge trimmers, but trim by hand with nice open areas. You'll have lots of light and strong branches. I'm Mark Viette. Join me next time in the garden.
For more garden tips, go to inthegardenradio.com.
Cabbage is one of Virginia's great cole crops in the fall and spring. Chef John Maxwell has a recipe for fried cabbage that will warm you up in the heart of the home.
And now, a sneak peek into a day in the life of a Virginia dairy cow. They get their day started. They have some lunch. Get some exercise. Spend time with their friends. And then end their day with dairy sweet dreams. Real dairy, real life, real delicious.
There are 30,000 roadway accidents each year involving cars and farm machinery. Farmers will be moving equipment for planting and harvest season. The slow-moving vehicle triangle in red and fluorescent orange colors and flashing lights allow for quick identification. When you see an SMV sign on farm equipment, slow down, prepare for sudden stops and slow turns.
Patience will save lives. Just remember, we all need to share the road, we all need to be responsible, and we need to be guided by the law.
Motor vehicle safety starts with you. Cold winter weather requires a hearty meal, and today Chef John Maxwell has his recipe for fried cabbage and delicious Virginia bacon in the heart of the home.
Hi, welcome to the heart of the home. We're here at Meadow Hall in Meadow Event Park in Doswell, Virginia, and every week we get a chance to play with some great Virginia food. We've got lots of stuff today. We've got cabbage, which is a great winter vegetable. We've got some beautiful bacon, and we're going to put the two together and make a little bit of fried cabbage. It's a great side dish. Actually, isn't a bad main dish either. So I'm going to get the pan hot over here. All right, and add the bacon. Let that get crispy. Shouldn't take long to do. I've got this all cut up nice and small. Right. It's going to take a couple of minutes for this to brown off. We want it to get nice and crispy. Okay, this is beginning to crisp up nicely here. Just give it a little bit more, maybe another 15 seconds. And I'm going to add the onions. As soon as I add something with more moisture in it, like the onions, that's going to stop the bacon from cooking and browning. So I want to wait until the bacon is just about where I want it before I add any other ingredients to the pan. And it looks like it's about there. So in go the onions. And the recipe for this is going to be on the website. Right? And it'll have all the accurate ingredients. I'm going to cut the heat down just a little bit here. So I want the onions to soften up, but I don't want them to brown too much. Okay, you see how the onions are starting to turn a little clear out here. That's what I'm looking for. That softens them up and lets the acids, that little sharp taste from the onions, get out of the onion. All right, it looks good. Now I'm going to add some of this cabbage. This is a great wintertime recipe because it's got all of those good warming kinds of flavors in it. Pulled it off a little bit because some of the bacon was down at the bottom, and I want to make sure that that heat doesn't scorch the bacon. Once it's up mixed in with the cabbage, then I can go back on to a high heat. I'm going to add some salt. And a little bit of black pepper. Now at this point you can add a little bit of sugar if you wanted to. A lot of people like their fried cabbage to have a little bit of a sweetness to it. And there's all kinds of ways you can sweeten it up. You could use a little honey, or you could use a little maple syrup or a little sugar. I don't want it to be sweet. I want it to be nice and savory. I want it to be a counterbalance. I want it to be a little sharp. So I'm going to add some vinegar. It's about an ounce of vinegar. There's that. I'm going to add a little caraway seed. And that's just about it. It's a beautiful side dish. This cabbage is still a little bit crispy. You could cook it longer if you want it to be nice and soft, but I like my cabbage a little bit crispy, so I'm going to pull it off now. And there we go. This is fried cabbage. Very simple, very easy, very tasty side dish. So join us next week on Heart of the Home, where we get to play with great Virginia food.
Recipes from the heart of the home can be found on the Virginia Farm Bureau website at vafb.com, as well as on Chef Maxwell's website at chefjohnmaxwell.com. Cabbage has a long and successful history in the mountains of southwest Virginia, especially in Carroll County. The mountainside fields there offer a perfect climate for this cold-hardy crop, and Virginia cabbage is sold across the Mid-Atlantic region each spring and fall when cabbage is not available from other regions. Virginia growers raise cabbage for commercial sale on 490 acres of land on 84 farms, and virtually all the commercial crop goes to fresh market outlets like grocery chains or farmers markets. Home gardeners and community-supported agriculture operations across the state often feature cabbage in late spring and early fall.
You're going to need me. You're going to need us. All of us. You're going to need our technical skills, our math, our engineering skills. You're going to need our help with your water, your air, your food. You're going to need our organizational skills, our problem-solving skills. You're going to need our determination, our honesty, our compassion. You're going to need the next generation of leaders to face the challenges the future will bring. And we promise we'll be there when you need us.
The herb industry is big business in Virginia, and as Dave Miller reports, fresh herbs are hugely popular in the winter months, and some of them aren't just for cooking anymore.
Virginian greenhouse operators raise millions of herbs year-round in a business that has exploded in recent decades. Companies like Shenandoah Growers in Rockingham County ship organic herbs to grocery stores all over the Mid-Atlantic region. Other growers are not as specialized, but they have found a financial niche. What began as a 900-acre family farm in Charles City County 3 decades ago has grown to become a modern production facility of 5 greenhouses, a packing warehouse, and an office complex. The Growers Exchange is now in eastern Henrico County and specializes in indoor and garden herb production. In the United States alone, over 40 million adults have reported using herbal supplements.
We've moved into a modern new greenhouse to supply the herb demand that we receive every year. The indoor, in comes potting soil, pots, flats, tags, seeds, sometimes started baby plants that we buy from another greenhouse. And we use our agronomics potting machine, which takes 1,000 pounds of soil at a time. It mixes our organic fertilizer and our biological fungicide into the soil, which gives us 3 months crop protection, which is delivered with the plant to the customer.
Popular garden herbs at the Growers Exchange include basil, chives, cilantro, oregano, and parsley, but they grow seedlings of dozens of other varieties. Marketing Director Keenan White says what started as a trickle of consumers on the internet has now become a flood for Growers Exchange products.
We've got a great product. We know how good our product is, and I love throwing it out there and having people find it, bite it, and want more. So I know that sounds sort of weird, but it is that. I love sharing our product with people and then getting the feedback. And I've got to say, after 20 years of retail in a bricks and mortar store, we've got more relationships with people now than we did then. And it's the quality of the interaction, whether it's through social media or email or even a phone.
Since many of its products are grown from seed, the Growers Exchange is extremely busy twice a year when other growers buy their seedlings to finish out. During busy months, the Growers Exchange hires extra help to plant, pack, and process the plants. The off-season for these gardeners offers an opportunity to fine-tune their operation.
That is how we work year-round, is always just shipping spring and fall, and then summer and winter we're getting the deep dive into how to be successful for the next year.
We can probably ship out anywhere like 300 to 400 orders a day. Yeah, an order can consist of like 2 to 3 plants or like 76 plants.
The Growers Exchange greenhouses used to be in a more rural location, but they moved closer to Richmond to improve their shipping times. Growers Exchange has found its niche in this rapidly expanding industry. Across Virginia, consumers are buying herbs for medicinal purposes, cooking, and even to attract wildlife to their gardens. In Henrico County, this is Dave Miller.
That's going to do it for this edition of Real Virginia. We are so glad you could join us to celebrate the bounty Virginia has to offer. Whether it's in your home, your garden, or your landscape, we are proud to say that this is Real Virginia. So for everyone from the Virginia Farm Bureau, thanks for watching. Make it a good week.
Home will always be Virginia, between the Blue Ridge and Chesapeake Bay.